In this week's episode, we interview Nate Fagen, a faith-based influencer who helps men achieve their full potential from a Christ-focused perspective.
We took a deep dive into Nate's testimony, biblical masculinity, and the lies being fed to young men by the red pill influencers.
I lived that lifestyle. It's going to leave a path of wreckage around you.
Expect to learn how young men can become strong, capable leaders while also avoiding the lies that are promising them success but are actually designed to keep them trapped.
Welcome to the Pursuit of Purpose podcast. I don't really want to bash people, but I do want to also speak the truth. I mean, I know there's some guys that a lot of young men look up to that are not really the best influence, I guess we could
I'll
say.
do the bashing for you, brother.
You
right,
broke it down
brother.
really well, actually. You had a video where you said that the trying to stay on the right path as a young man is like walking on a narrow road and there's a ditch on either side. If you could, I would love for you to kind of go into that again, because I think that was like a perfect analogy, and I think a lot of young men could really relate to what you were saying there. Could you kind of break down what each ditch is and how we can kind of stay focused on the right path?
Of course, yeah. And that analogy, like the saying, it comes from my pastor, Pastor Joby Martin. It's not my, it sounds really good. It's too good to come from me.
What?
So,
I didn't know your pastor was Joby Martin.
yes, yeah, man, he rocks.
Dude,
Yeah.
let's go.
That's crazy.
That guy's amazing. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
love his pre. It's so cool to see that he's getting the national recognition now. Because man, like I've been going to that church for a couple years now. I'm like, man, I don't see any preaching online that's as good as this. He's like going at the issues like he should in so many ways. So it's awesome. But
That's awesome.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, bro. That just kind of got me hyped up. I was like, what? Let's go, man.
yeah, it's a real man's pastor right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch. And what I see a lot of men falling into now, there's these two ditches, and they're on the same path of this desire of like what it means to be a man, what is going to satisfy you. And on one side, one ditch is just the path of culture or mainstream, and this is what weak men fall into, where it's the victim mentality, it's the everything is out to get me, and you're just trapped in comfort, whether it's social media, pornography, constant dopamine, like those things. And even if you're trying to go on this path, like that path's going to be pulling you. It's basically just the victim mentality. That's one ditch. But the ditch that I think is really enticing men nowadays is the red pill masculinity path, I would say, is the best way to say it. So that's Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines. I like to even group Nick Fuentes in there, because although he's got a slightly different message, he
More political.
attracts the same crowd.
Right.
Of men who, what they want to do is they want to be angry at the world. All three groups are angry at the world, and rightfully so. But what they do is they are driven off of rage, and it pushes them forward to focus on themselves. It's a self-serving lifestyle where more money, more sex, more status, things of that nature. For what's the purpose? To serve self. And this is driving so many men off the wrong path, because as men, God wired us to be warriors, to be ambitious, to like desire greatness. That's not a bad thing at all. But what red pill masculinity does is it twists that desire to, instead of using your strength to serve other people as God intended us to use your strength for the service of yourself. And that is destroying so many men. But of course, the middle path, it's the path right here.
Oh, yeah.
Biblical masculinity. It's down the middle. It is being strong. It's not being weak. It's being meek, and then using your strength for the good of others. Because when good men stand up and act like the men of the Bible, everybody flourishes. That's the middle path. And it's the hardest one to go on, because that middle road is surrounded by those ditches that are easy to fall into. I still fall into them all the time.
Absolutely, man. Me too.
Yeah. That's a really great way of breaking it down.
Could you go into specifics on what you think young men are falling into with those certain people?
Yeah, maybe we could start with like the first ditch, sort of the culture one, and just kind of compare the two, because it's interesting that they seem almost like opposites, but it seems like you're saying that they're kind of like two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think both sides are a response to or a reaction, seeing where the world is headed. Because let's face it, I think we can see now more than ever that evil is prevalent, that there's an attack against men in a lot of ways, like we are being emasculated. But what these men do is honestly, they just give up. And I don't say that to like beat them up because I fall into that so many times and it often happens without realizing it. What happens is you get sedated. Like what
Mm.
the enemy does isn't, he doesn't throw this full frontal attack at you. He just gives you a little bit of comfort here and a little bit of comfort there. And next thing you know, you're wasting hours consuming instead of creating. You're consuming processed food, pornography, social media, all of these things, but you're not really doing anything about your life. And what this often turns into, even politically, is complaining about the things that are going on without actually doing anything about the world, but more importantly, about yourself. And what
Ooh.
this does is it makes men go insane, honestly, because if you're constantly complaining without doing anything, that's going to make you go nuts. So I would say that's the first path of just the victim mentality. And you can really, it's so easy to fall into that with the amount of comfort that's available nowadays. And it can be easy to just shell up, power, and hide just because of what's going on. So, and I fall into this temptation sometimes, and then I realize like that's not what God made me for. I This suffering isn't something to run from; it's something to run into. So I'd say
Mm.
that's the first ditch.
Yeah, that's very well put, bro.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
Brother.
Yeah, we need to start doing something. I think we are kind of getting stuck in this space. I mean, like with the Epstein stuff, right? Me and John keep going back and forth. We're like blown away that nothing's happened.
Mm.
And we know the government won't do anything, right? But like, why haven't we as people done anything, at least to protect the children? Like, we can't even do that. But anyway,
It goes to
um,
show the level of sedation in our
Mm.
society, the
yeah,
level of comfort. Like we are comfortable enough. We're not. I would say our society isn't comfortable, but it's just
Yeah.
barely comfortable enough to not do anything about what's going
Mm.
on. And you got sports on the TV, you got food on the table. It's good enough. You're not happy, you're not satisfied, and you
Yeah.
know all these wicked things are going on, but you can't rock the boat. Even though we know the boat is actively sinking, we just want to plug these little holes instead of abandoning ship and actually doing something about it because
Yeah.
we like it just enough.
we're
That's
We
what we're
get
distracted.
our
doing.
bread in circuses every
Yeah.
every day at 7 p.m.
Yeah, man,
So.
we got Sunday football coming on. We don't need to do anything about anything anymore.
I know, dude.
'Cause,
Why is everybody worried about Epstein, bro? Like, did you guys not watch the game last night?
yeah,
Like, come on,
dude. Oh my goodness.
we got bigger fish to fry here.
Yeah.
Nate, I wanted to ask you about the whole red pill thing, where get as many women as possible. God made you to, procreate type of stuff that they flood people's minds with. How do you feel about that?
Oh, good old Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, all of those people. I lived that lifestyle for so long. I think that's the lifestyle that I think entices men because no man wants to be a victim. He wants to be
Mhm.
something great. And what this is packaged as is all the things that a man's flesh wants. I mean, sex, you want to feel good, you want money, you want power. All these things, they sound great to a man and they're not necessarily bad. I mean, God wired us in a way to desire these certain things to a certain extent. But what happens is the red pill masculinity is a acceptance of the flesh, and it's a going all in on that as that being the primary aim of your life.
Yeah.
And it's a service of self, not a service of other people, which is
Mm.
goes inherently against what God made us to do as men. So, for example, people like Andrew Tate, they say you were created to be a conqueror, and a conqueror sleeps with as many women as possible. He has women with multiple, or he has children with multiple women. And that is such a destructive lie for men that I fell into. I thought, okay, if I can get these women to like me, to sleep with me, then I'll be enough. Then that voice in my head, that hole in my heart will go away. Then I'll be satisfied. And the more women I slept with, the more validation I tried to get from that, the more empty I felt every single time. But what's so tragic about that is not only did I hurt myself in the process, because as Paul says in First Corinthians, sexual immorality is not just a sin against God, it's a sin against your own body.
Mhm.
It's a sin against your body, it's a sin against the other person's body, and then it's a sin against your future wife. And so many
Mhm.
men are wanting to, this is another piece, So many men want to blame women for all the problems going on in the world while simultaneously contributing to the reason why women are the way they are. Why do you think women are so promiscuous, so liberal, so out in left field, as men like to say nowadays? Because their fathers didn't step up, because the men in their life treat them like garbage. Yes, there's accountability for them, 100%. But that starts with us breaking the cycle, taking responsibility, and to not treat women as something to complain about or to conquer. And that's what people like Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes tell us to do. Because
Mm.
God made man to be with woman. It's a gift, but made it to be one man, one woman, one lifetime, not one man, one whatever for one night. Uh, and I think what's going on right now is, instead of doing something about the real crisis in our culture, which is the family, I think that's the biggest thing that needs addressing. About politics, it's addressing the family unit. Instead of addressing that issue, we are making it worse by saying, yeah, this problem's happening, so I'm going to just enjoy it while I can. And that leads to the wreckage of your life, but the wreckage of so many others' lives. And I'm so thankful, by the grace of God, that I was able to find healing from the sexual degenerate lifestyle that I was living in. I was so thankful to find healing from that. I'm so thankful that God still provided me with a woman that I do not deserve. But through that, we've found healing, and I've turned away from that lifestyle. And I tell you what, I wish I could have waited, but the greatest gift is marriage. That there's no greater gift than that. And I wish men understood how great it was, so that they wouldn't waste this gift that God has given them too early. There's no greater gift than that. So yeah, the red pill mentality is just, it's disgusting. I could go on and on about it.
No, that's a great way of breaking it down.
That was really good.
It's because it's interesting, because men have kind of, like you said, become emasculated. We've seen that from our culture. So it's kind of like the response where they're swinging towards the other direction, but it's like a counterfeit. It's something that sounds like the truth. It's like, yeah, men are supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be competent. We're supposed to be capable. We're supposed to be leaders and everything that goes with it. But then they start, like you mentioned before, they start turning that around to say, well, you need to use your power to serve yourself as opposed to others. So it's kind of like that saying, there's a little bit of truth in every lie. It's like they'll start off with the truth about, you should not be emasculated, you should be strong, and you should be capable, but then they'll mix something into it. That's kind of
Jack in the box, man.
Yeah,
Keep cranking that wheel. It's gonna.
Like I totally agree. Like, even going back to like Nick Fuentes on a lot of things, like I've been very critical of him. I agree with him on the state of politics for a lot of it, like what's going on in our government, the wickedness there, how like men are being emasculated, we're being replaced, and all that. I totally agree with him, but the solution that he gives is not the right one. We could go to Andrew Tate. For being emasculated, you need to make something out of your life. Just falling into just cheap comfort instead of being disciplined is wrong. I totally agree with him on that. But at the end of the day, what's the end goal? Because like you said, we are, as men, we're supposed to be strong. As men, we're supposed to be conquerors. We're supposed to desire greatness. But what is greatness? What is strength? Because if it's for the service of self, that is not greatness at all. Jesus defines in Matthew, when the James and John, at their mother, so Jesus defined greatness in Matthew when James and John, their mother, asked him if they could sit at his right hand. And what he said was greatness was being a servant, was lowering yourself. And men nowadays aren't willing to do that. I think that's true strength. Yet nowadays it's just all service of self.
We also don't want to hear, especially if you're on, that side of the aisle right now, following into that, kind of that red pill trap, that we as men are part of the problem as to why women are getting to where they are. And as a woman, they'll say the same thing about the men. And I think all three of us can agree here. The state of our men and our leaders in this country, the rest of society follows.
100%.
Your women and children are going to follow. And if we have guys that are in either political power, influence, and they start, you put it beautifully, man. They start going around and sleeping with as much women as they can, and then we wonder why the girls do what they do, because it's like, why would they respect those type of guys? Well, they wouldn't, and I wouldn't blame them for it anyway. So
yeah. Well, I think the best way, we can literally see this clearly when you bring up some of these like red pill influencers. What do they always say about relationships between men and women? They say that women have to remain pure. And they'll shame women for sleeping around, but then they say that a man has to sleep with as many women as possible. And now when they're criticizing these issues in society, you start to see there's an obvious contradiction here.
Yeah.
Because if the man is supposed to gain experience or gain status from being with all these women, well, who are they going to gain the experience with if the women are supposed to be pure? You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
by telling
100%.
men to do that, they're literally making the societal issues, unless they're saying they should do it with other men, which I don't think is
Oh,
what Andrew Tate is
jeez.
trying to push.
Maybe Fuentes. I don't know.
Oh, that's cooked.
Maybe.
I totally lost my train of thought, man.
Hey, come
Oh,
on, bro. You
jeez,
gave me a
man.
lob there. I don't know.
Oh,
You know? Oh
That's
my
brutal.
goodness.
um,
What a clip.
I totally lost my train
He's
of thought.
gonna
man.
DM me, bro. He's gonna be like, "What do you?" Or he's gonna react to that.
All of
That's-
his Groiper minions are gonna attack me. Like, get,
Do they
get
DM you
offline, go
now?
do something. Dude, I have so many people in my DMs. When I started going hard on Fuentes, the amount of DMs I got about that was insane.
Oh man.
Like, it was like, bro took the $7,000. Like,
Yeah.
no, like it's insane that there's only like two opinions on an issue that you can have. And I think it's
Right.
like for every bit of like for every lie, there's a little bit of truth. And like I think the pendulum's just swinging back and forth.
Yeah.
So and it's like red pill masculinity over here, victimhood mentality over here.
Mhm.
Answers in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
bro.
and on the topic of Fuentes, you see the same thing in politics, right? We'll just give like an example, like the ICE shootings that happened in Minneapolis.
Talking about Bubba.
What?
So you're talking about Bubba?
No. I'm talking about ICE, right? You see the ICE shootings that happened in Minneapolis. It's like there's only two buckets to fall into.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, you can say these people that got shot deserved it, and it's good that these people are dead, and those ICE officers did exactly what they were supposed to do, and there was no foul play, there was no mistreatment. It's a good thing that those people are died, and they had it coming, and it's their fault for getting shot. And those ICE officers didn't do anything wrong whatsoever. And then on the other side, you have nobody is illegal on stolen land, and ICE shouldn't even exist. So
Yep.
it's like you see in our culture, there's literally two extremes, and you can't take a middle approach and say
It's
like we
brainwashing.
should.
It's intentional.
Yeah,
Yeah, bro.
yeah.
It's a
designed
uniparty. They don't care about us. They just want. Well, I mean, really, what's going to happen is, I mean, because now we're grouping all immigrants together. Like,
Mhm.
it's like an Olympian, like a gold medalist. I forgot her name. She's basically talking about, I believe in like immigrants' rights. That's just such a broad topic. That's like, okay, so we're just going to let anybody in now? Do you really think that's smart? Just obviously what happened with ICE is wrong, 100%. I think like there should be some stuff that happens there, and we should be careful because I don't think that regardless of whether immigration is like, it has to be enforced, but at the same time, we also have to be careful in how ICE is enforcing things.
Yeah,
But
and you have to
at the same
respect
time,
human
it's just
dignity,
drawing
right?
people to the extremes. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the red pill space. I know you brought up the example of like, oh, you should sleep around with all these women. I wanted to ask, are there any other examples you can think of off the top of your head of like a common thing that you hear being pushed on young men that is partially true, but has a little bit of some kind of lie baked into it? Does that
Jack
make
in the
sense?
box.
It's a great question. That's a great
Like
question. Let me think.
what's a message that you hear being pushed to young men that's like partially true, but there's something hiding in the shadows behind it?
That is a fantastic question, and I'm blanking right now. I would say to be angry. I think there's a lot of things that we have to be angry about in our society right now. We should be enraged about the Epstein files. We should be enraged about the corruption in politics. We should be enraged about these injustices and what's going on. But when you're constantly being angry about what's going on in the world, but you're not focusing first and foremost about what you can control, that is just going to make you go insane. I have a saying like, before you deal with the wickedness in the world, deal with the wickedness within yourself. And I believe if more men did that, if they addressed themselves first and foremost, if that was their priority of developing themselves, again, not for themselves, but for the service of their families and for God, I believe that would make a far bigger impact than us chirping on social media about these things. So I think, yes, we have every right to be upset. We should want justice and justice now for the horrific men in the Epstein files. But it's not just being angry about that. It's about taking action on what you can control in your life. So I
Right.
believe that's one of the biggest things is if we're just constantly talking about politics all the time, that I think it misses out on the piece that we actually have the most control over. And we're wasting our time and our masculine strength in our 20s worrying about things we can't really do much about. I would say that's one of the big things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to add into something there. I mean, they don't really talk about it too much, but I have heard it, especially when, the big prime Andrew Tate days was men are not supposed to show any emotion, even to like your best friend or even your wife. And, as men, it's like there's a line there, right? Like you don't want to be.
You don't want to wear your heart in your sleeve.
Exactly. And you want to be able to be calm and composed, but, something happens and you're telling me that, let's say, for instance, John here, I can't come to John and just be like, dude, I'm not feeling all right about this. Like this actually affected me, whatever it may be. Or be sad about something. It's like almost these people have almost gotten to where like your mom dies and you can't even cry.
Hmm.
What kind of effect does that have on somebody? A pretty big one. So that's just something I'd add in.
I totally agree. I think control over your emotions, but the presence of emotions is really important. I mean, just look at Christ. When his good friend Lazarus died, he wept.
Mhm.
He wept with, I think, godly sorrow is a good thing, and the inability to feel emotions is not a masculine trait. And I remember in the months leading up to my wedding, uh, I like I felt like emotionless about certain things, and that scared. Like I was worried I wasn't going to be able to cry when my wife walked down the aisle. And what I had to do is I had to take a break from social media. I had to talk with my friends, and one of them told me something that just like it just clicked for me. It's like you can't think your way into emotions. Like they just happen. And I think you have to be able to allow that space for it by being present, but then understanding that it comes up but it doesn't rule you. There's a balance. And I think most men they either let their emotions rule them. They're up here one second, they're down the next. Sometimes I struggle with that. And then some men they think it's just stoic all the time. But that's not what Jesus was. So I
Mhm.
think there's a middle line. We can't be ruled by our emotions, but we must be aware of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it. I wanted to ask you about marriage. I know you haven't been married very long,
I've
but
got it
in
all
that,
figured out, guys. Yeah.
But congratulations, though.
I know,
Congrats,
seriously, man,
man. It's
congratulations.
amazing.
Thank you.
In those first few months, is there anything that you've kind of learned that most guys our age aren't really kind of blindside us going
Yes.
into something
Oh,
like that?
dude, I've learned more about myself in these last few months of being married than I did in the years before. Because what marriage does to you, I made a post about this back in January, and I got a lot of flack for it. Like people thought I was crazy. Where I basically said like my first months of marriage were like one of the hardest things for me, and people were like, "What? It's your first couple months. It's easy. It should be." And I'm like, I immediately saw this is why their marriage doesn't last, because what a real lasting marriage requires is for you to die. I have to leave, and I fail at this more times than I succeed, but I have to leave the man I was on November 9th, the day I got married. I have to leave him at the altar. I have to leave him
Mm.
there every day, and I have to walk in who I am now, which is one flesh with my wife. I have to seek her needs first. I have to, as Peter said in First Peter, live with her in an understanding way, know her well, seek her well-being first, lead her, not just be ruled by my emotions or my desires. And that's hard. It is extremely difficult, and I am far from perfect at it. But yeah, the death of the man I was before leads to the flourishing of the one flesh I am with my wife now. And that's really difficult, but it really starts with to all the single guys or dating guys, um, serving other people, having that servant heart, and not again going back to red pill masculinity, using your strength to serve yourself first. Because if that's what you do, you are going to maybe be great by worldly terms, but you're going to live an unfulfilling life. You're going to hurt the people around you, and your marriage isn't going to last. So I would say that's the
Mm.
biggest thing that I'm still actively learning, but it's the most important thing, dying to self.
Yeah. Was this when you had this change of who you are and your thoughts about things? Was this like, did this really kick into full effect after you had those seizures and you went through that time, and then it just started moving from there? Or was it after that?
So you're saying like the man I am
Like,
now?
yeah, yeah. It was like when you got sick and you had all those seizures, and then you said that you had those last three, and then you've been good since then. What was that like time period before you became like who you are now? And yeah, because you had said like you used to think all the red pill stuff as well. Like,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
would say that I was hardcore red pill when I was 18 and 19, like living for the world, all those things. But really, as after I got diagnosed with epilepsy, it was like a slow turn. Like I was still living for myself in a lot of ways, still consumed by lust for a long time. But God slowly pulled me. It wasn't like a one moment, everything clicked. But I met my wife, girlfriend then, like a couple months into my battle with epilepsy, and she wasn't close to the Lord at that time either. But we both had this understanding that we knew that was the right way to go. So we helped
Hmm.
each other, and I think that's one of the most important traits you can have in a relationship is you get better with that person. Like that's a great indicator. If you've been dating somebody for a month, ask yourself, am I better because of this? The answer is yes. That's somebody you want to continue to grow with, and we grew together and we grew closer to God through that. But I would say the real moments where the growth really just skyrocketed was once we got engaged, which was a month after I had those final three seizures because um, my wife, she saved my life in those seizures. It was like she knew that I was like somehow still somewhat I can't explain the feeling that I had during those seizures, but I can't explain that somehow she knew what I was feeling and she was able to calm me down and keep me from like hyperventilating during this. It was
Hmm.
incredible. And literally, like after I had the seizures, two out of the three, the first thing that I said when I woke up to my parents was, "I got to marry that girl." And then a month
wow,
later, I
Wow.
proposed. But yeah, so I would say that engagement process was really what skyrocketed it because,
okay,
and I believe this is one of the most important things about why men should add responsibility and specifically try to get married young, is that added pressure is the most valuable thing that you can have in your life. And I would say that added pressure of knowing that I've got to provide for this woman, I've got to be a man who can, as simple as getting up early, denying my flesh in that way, denying my flesh with lust, um, all of these different things. I had no choice but to succeed. And when you have no choice but to succeed, you're going to do what it takes to make it happen. And that was really what happened during the engagement process. I grew a whole lot as a man. And then married now, like I'm actually living that out. That's the standard. It's not like I want to do this. It's the standard that I have set for myself. And I think that's why responsibility and pressure is so important for young men. Add as much of it to your life as you can.
how do you think? Besides, getting engaged, how do you think young men can do that for themselves?
I would say there's a couple things. So, number one is keeping your word with yourself. This is where confidence is. The word confidence, the root of it's confide, which means to trust. And your self confidence is directly connected to your ability to trust yourself. So, make promises to yourself and then keep them. And you should start small with it. Maybe it's just, hey, I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. tonight. And you can build on that. Hey, I'm I can't promise 5 weeks down the road, but I can promise tonight I'm not going to watch porn. And then you grow on those promises. You make those commitments, not just saying them, but doing the things that is required to make it happen. So having the system in place, you build that up, and that takes pressure and it takes a level of seriousness of you taking your name serious. You build on that, and that builds up your self confidence. But it's also your name with other people. Um, being somebody that other people can trust, being somebody that other people can count on, and having people that require something out of you. It could be as simple as you volunteering at your church. If you want to lead the seventh graders at your church, you got to be a man that they can look up to. You don't want to be in the
Mm.
same struggles that they're. I mean, you don't have to be perfect, but you do need to hold yourself to a standard. You need to volunteer in certain areas. And then I think one of the biggest and most powerful pieces that has transformed my life, and it's literally the focus of my business now, is around brotherhood, having godly accountability, men that require something out of you, that are going to grow alongside you and who are going to convict you when you fall short. When you've got another man asking you, hey, how did you do in the last week with lust? Where were you tempted? Because it's not, did you get tempted? It's where. And then having to be honest with them. You don't want to have to come time and time again saying you fell into the same trap, same sin over and over. That that would weigh on it has weighed on my conscience. Having those people around you that require something of you gives you no choice but to grow. And I believe that's why having that deep godly accountability is one of the most powerful things you can have in your life.
That's amazing, man. That's actually like, I feel inspired listening to that.
Hey, let's go. Come on.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you,
pumped.
what exactly is your business that you're running right now? You said something about accountability.
Yeah.
And
Well, I probably should have used a better word than business, because yes, it's what I do. It's the focus of my mission, but it's a lifestyle, and it's a community and culture. So the community that I run, it's called the Mighty Men Brotherhood. It's named after the men who fought with King David,
Hmm.
and these men were so incredibly powerful. And what they did in David's life is so important. They fought with him, they broke bread with him, and then when we look at the biggest failure in David's life, where were those men? Where were those men when David fell into sin with Bathsheba? They were off at war. David abandoned them. He was just sitting at home. And I think that
Hmm.
speaks to the power of accountability and brotherhood. And so yeah, that's what I run as a men's community with the mission of driving inward mastery, so inward self-development, outward impact on your future family, on the people around you, your community, your church, for the purpose of upward glory for God. We work on the inward and the outward with the focus on serving upward. Starting with just ourselves, that's going to do way more than anything we could talk about online. It gives us action to take. And then having that accountability around you of men who have that same mission is so powerful, because I don't know about you guys, but like, I know you guys are ambitious. You want to make something happen with your life, but I'm sure it's been really hard for you to find other like-minded men our age, right?
Yeah.
That's why I got this stud right here.
Exactly,
There
man.
you
It
go.
was like,
Let's go.
Yeah.
when I met Jackson, it's interesting because you usually have friends that are Christian, and then you have friends that are ambitious, and it's very hard to find a friend that's both, because your Christian
you go.
friends oftentimes don't understand your ambitions. They just don't really think on that wavelength. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just they're just kind of wired in a different way. And then your ambitious friends are talking about flying to Dubai and like cracking some girls on a yacht, and that's their ultimate goal in life. And it's like it's very, very difficult to find somebody who shares your values. They don't have this sort of degenerate lifestyle that they're striving after, but they also want to achieve something with
Yeah.
their life. That's been probably one of my biggest bottlenecks. Not that I have any problem finding people that are in either camp, the ambitious camp or the godly camp. It's finding people that are in both that I had the biggest struggle with
It's
until I
like
met
the circles
Jackson.
at school with the
The Venn diagrams.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. It's like they're very big circles, but there's very little overlap between the two of them. And that was just one of the biggest struggles that I had. That is really cool that you have a community like that. We'll plug that in the
Yeah,
description.
absolutely.
love
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I know
I'd be honored.
personally, dude, like I recently moved to New Hampshire when we started this show, so about 5 months ago. I'm from South Carolina, and dude, I was like, it was really weighing on me. I'm like, I know how important it is to find, whether it just be men or just people in general. It can be, it can be a girl too, that they kind of want the same things as you. Like John was just saying, they want to get closer to God, and they want to live a lifestyle that is of godly values. And man, I was just praying that prayer, and I came here and met John, and
I was the answer to his prayer.
yeah, and my brother's like locking in, bro. Like, dude's a hustler now, and all my buddies at home, dude. I got like a Bible study going with them, and they're getting, they're walking this way now. I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I'm just venting. I'm blessed, really, is what it is.
It's like a night and day difference
Praise
in your
God
life.
for
you
that.
know what I mean?
It really
Yeah.
is.
Trying to go it alone versus having people
Yeah.
around you. It's totally
Yeah.
night and day.
The three most dangerous words you can say as a man are, I got this. When you try to fight alone, you're going to get your butt kicked by the devil every single time. And I think that's what,
Mhm.
like you said, if you're ambitious and a Christian man, and it's so hard to be both, it's so hard to find those other people around you to do it with. So you're left in this isolation. And in that isolation, you're not going to grow as much and you're going to get beat down and be stuck constantly. You're going to not see your blind spots. You're going to feel alone constantly. And you're just going to continue to stay in that same cycle. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was just stuck in that for so long
Mhm.
until I found those men who had that same vision as me. And they're so hard to find. So I'm so
Yeah.
thankful that you guys are able to find that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think it's you mentioned lust earlier. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why um as I brought up on one of our other episodes, 87% of men 18 to 35 watch porn at least once a week. I don't
Wow.
know if you knew that statistic, but
Real that's
It's
mind
bad in the
blowing, but
church too.
not
yeah. Oh, I
surprising.
think it's especially that's those are the men that Satan goes after the most because if you
Yeah.
can keep a man ruled by his emotions, he can't be fully submissive to God.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like I think part of the reason we have that, obviously the elephant in the room is just the fact that it's accessible, right? If you have something, back in the day 100 years ago, it would be a lot harder to access something like that. Now you have it in your pocket, literally 10 seconds away. So obviously I think that's one thing that's contributed to it. It's the overall decline in like the values of our culture, but also just the fact that it's so accessible. But I think the isolation is such a huge thing because when I tell people that statistic, they usually have the same reaction you did. They're shocked by it, right? Even other guests that are kind of in this space for a while, they didn't know it's that high because we kind of subconsciously think of things like porn as some like weird, like taboo thing that's like you're like the one guy in your class that struggles with it and everybody else is normal and it's like this weird fringe obsession that nobody else has. And people don't realize just how common it is because nobody talks to each other. Because the guy sitting next to you in class, I mean, think about it. If you're in college and you're sitting in a classroom with like 23 other guys in that class, 21 of them, statistically speaking, watch porn at some point in the past week.
So
So,
sad.
and the thing is, the real kicker is that every guy in the room thinks they're the only one. Or maybe there's a couple here and there. So everybody's afraid to talk about it. Everybody's afraid to share it because everybody's thinking like everyone's looking at me. Everybody's going to be judging me. They won't have a guy that they trust. They won't confide in somebody because they think that they're the only one who struggles with something like that. But I guarantee you that if they made one close friend in that classroom, chances are, when I say chances are, I mean 87% chance to be exact that that guy struggles with the same thing. So it's
Yeah.
not as uncommon as we think, but for some reason, guys that struggle with it think that there's like this, it's like this taboo topic to talk about, and they're the only one that they know who struggles with it. And I think that's how the devil keeps people trapped because the longer he can keep you in isolation, the longer he can keep that addiction in the shadows, he can continue to wreak havoc on your life, and you think that there's something wrong with you, and you think you're the only one. And once you confess your sins of any kind, like if there's really anything I'm struggling with, a lot of times I'll tell Jackson about it. There's a lot of freedom in that, and there's a lot of opportunities for growth there. That's why the Bible says confess your sins to one another. But I think that's really what keeps people trapped the most. Have you noticed that the people that have confessed their addictions in your community like tend to get better with it over time?
Dude, I think every single person who has joined my brotherhood, and I'm confident saying every single person who's joined, who struggled with lust at the start, is either free from it or has made massive steps. So, for example, we've got a guy who literally was addicted to pornography for over 10 years, and
Mm,
he's been pretty much free from it since. And it's
Amen.
not that when I say free, it's very important that I understand that lust is a lifelong battle. Like
mhm,
lust, we are constantly going to be tempted by it because we're wired as men, and Satan tries to twist this good desire that God gave us. So it's incredibly important that we constantly stay watchful. But in that fight, we can find victory, and I think it's impossible to really find true, lasting victory alone. I think that's like
mm,
one of the dumbest things you can do. So, yeah, I think you're spot on with that. The hardest step in defeating lust is having the courage to say you've got a problem. But once you do
yeah.
that and you stop relying on your own willpower, number one, that person ain't going to judge you. They might come beside you and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with the same thing," or they may say, "I've been through that. let me help you. And when you've got that person who's going to be there and hold you accountable, and it's not just going to come up out of the blue once in a blue moon. It's a required conversation that you guys have on a regular basis. It's going to push you to grow and do the work to overcome it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when guys feel the conviction about it too, to even go to somebody, if you feel that and you're like, because there is a lot of guys that are doing it and they don't really see a problem with it, and those are the men I worry about.
Yeah,
Because
it's
it
so
is,
sad.
it is, and
We had a post, this other influencer named Ella Malding. She's like this huge anti-porn advocate. We had her on the show to talk about, basically warn people about the dangers of pornography use. And one of her biggest like platforms that she's an activist for is illegalizing it. And one of the clips kind of went like semi-viral, like got a few 100,000 views on Instagram, about, she was saying you shouldn't marry somebody who has a porn addiction, especially if you're a woman. If you're a woman, don't marry a guy who has a porn addiction, because it will affect your marriage, whether you think it's going to or not. It absolutely will. It's just a matter of when. And what was crazy to me was the number of guys in the comments that were coping with it, because I always
It's so
assumed
sad.
that porn was like a struggle, because most of the guys that I talk to, like, they describe it as a struggle. But this is like the first time I was scrolling through these like seemingly endless comments of people saying it's because women aren't quote unquote good enough, so we have to turn to this. It's because society has destroyed men and this is all we have now. It's okay to do it in quote unquote moderation. It's not an addiction I can stop anytime. And I guarantee you they never actually tried to stop, so there's no way they would be able to know that. And all these people in the comments that are coping with it, that are rationalizing it, that are defending it and saying, no, it's totally fine for a guy to watch it and don't let women try to talk you out of it. It's just, that was like the first time that I really came to grips with it. There's so many men out there that literally don't even see it as a problem. And I just never
Man,
realized that before.
wow, that's so sad. And it just goes back to the Fuentes group. This like complain about the women out there, but then fall into the very thing that you're complaining about
yeah,
and just be consumed by lust. It's truly tragic. And I could say, as somebody, I agree with the fact that women should not marry a man who's a porn addict. Like, if you're a porn addict,
yeah,
I'll be vulnerable here. I remember having to, before I got married, having to tell my then fiance that in our relationship I watched porn for a little while, and the damage that did to her was like the look in her eye was a look that, like, just that alone made me realize that I am never going to come anywhere near this again, because the damage that it has on you, but more importantly the people you care about, is far deeper than most men realize. And you have to take action on it now, because there's nothing like pornography, what it does to the brain, what it does to your hormones, what it does to your soul. Why do you think porn's free?
Because you pay
Because,
with your soul.
amen, amen. That's it, it's
and the
truly
devil's there
tragic.
to
And
collect.
yeah, I feel so bad for all the men out there, because it's so accessible, and like, you can try everything to not see it, and then an ad is going to come up, and it's just like, it's truly satanic. And really, the only solution is to first and foremost go to Jesus Christ with them, and second, to have that brotherhood around you that's going to fortify
Absolutely.
you. Because if you rely on willpower, dude, the strongest man in the Bible, the wisest man in the Bible, and the most powerful king in the Bible, they all fell to lust. So how in the world can we expect to overcome it? I think
Yeah,
that's just idiotic. And it means we have to have that godly accountability around us, or else we're going to lose 100% of the time. It's inevitable. And Satan wants nothing more than to keep this like as a small crutch in your life while you're young, so that when you're at the peak of your influence, he could just completely take you out. Like, it's one thing for you to have this small little, oh, I can manage this porn addiction when you're 20. But what about when it becomes this massive thing you've been keeping in the dark, as something you go back to here and there when you're 40 with 3 kids? What do you think that's going to do? And we just look at the pastors that we see out there who have this fall from grace because they slept with a woman who wasn't their wife. Do you think it started as that, or was it something just small that they thought they could control? They said, I
yeah,
got
Yeah.
this. I can manage this.
Mm.
They ignored the accountability that they needed. and Satan slow walked them down the path that destroyed their legacy. So that's why we have
Yeah.
to stop now, because it's only going to grow the more we keep it
Mhm.
in the dark.
I mean, on a better note, though, like, I mean, Matthew 7, I was reading this a few days ago and it like stuck out like a sore thumb. You know, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. I mean, I made a video about this. The word to you. It doesn't mean he's just going to, you know, open and then throw you in. No, the door is open to you so you can walk into it. And he wants us to be able to break free of this. And in my own
100%.
experiences, it's not easy.
Mhm.
It's hard. But
Very.
leaning on him, especially his word, that's the answer. And to find a guy to just be able to talk to about it, you know?
And Nate, it's really something you said kind of hit me. You said the wisest king or the strongest king in the Bible, the wisest man in the Bible, and the strongest man in the Bible all fell to it. Something kind of came back to me while you were talking about that. When you said the most powerful king, were you referring to David?
Yes.
It's really interesting. How did David come out of that sin? How did that process of repentance start? It was when Nathan approached him and stuck his finger in his face and gave him the famous "You are that man" speech.
Yo,
So when you think about it,
that's fact.
the way that David started his journey of repentance was with accountability.
That's facts. Mm.
When he called Bathsheba in, there was nobody he was accountable to. Her husband was away at war. His mighty men, like you said, were away at war. Then Nathan comes in and confronts him, and that's when he repents.
There it is.
Yeah, I just made a video about this speaks about lust, but all the other areas. I think what we love about what we love about the men of the Bible is not that they're just strong and powerful and live lives that we want to aspire to, but the fact they're also human. The
Yeah.
people we look up to, other than Jesus Christ, which is the number one person to look up to,
Yeah.
we're deeply flawed, yet God used them anyway. I mean, for example, like 3 men that really stick out to me. I want to have the strength of King David. I want to have the courage of Elijah, and I want to have the passion of Peter. King David was crippled by lust. Elijah fell into anxiety and depression, and Peter was emotionally erratic. He betrayed Christ. All 3 of those men did things that, by the world's standards, would cripple them and ruin them. But what happened? They had these redemption stories. I mean, David, convicted by Nathan, and he repents.
Yeah.
Elijah was uplifted by Elisha, and he goes and confronts King Ahab and takes down wicked, wicked rulers. And then Peter was reminded of his identity by Jesus, and he goes out, proclaims the gospel, and is even willing to continue to preach it while he's crucified upside down on a cross because he didn't feel he was worthy to be crucified like his Savior. Those are the stories of the men I want to be like. And all of those men had traits God gave them. They had flaws, and they had men around them to help them overcome them. I think that's so beautiful.
That's solid.
Let's go.
I love
that.
man. So I wanted to ask you, I guess, sort of as a last question here.
Of course.
Say there's a guy watching this that is actively going through a porn addiction or lust of some sort. If you could give him step by step, like, this is what you need to do.
Or the red pill drought.
Yeah, or the red pill drought. Maybe those are 2 separate answers. Maybe it all comes under the same category. However you want to approach that topic. Well, what would you say to them if you could speak to them directly?
It's a great question. Let me think here. I'm going to do separate answers for these because although I
Okay.
think oftentimes they can go hand in hand, I think it's important to have specific strategies to cope with both of them. So if you're watching this and it's just one for you, take that advice. Again, I'm not perfect. Listen, this book's got a lot better advice than me. But if it's both, yeah, heed my words. I'm somebody who's experienced both of them. And I would say, first and foremost, to the man struggling with lust, I want you to know that you are not alone. And as Romans 8:1 says, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So that voice that is trying to shame you, that is trying to push you down, that's pushing you away from God, that is not from God, is straight from the pit of hell, and it's no longer your identity. So before you make any change in your actions or your habits, you have to understand who you are. You are a child of God. And as Galatians 5 says, there is freedom for those who are in Christ. You no longer have to hold on to the slavery of sin. There is a power that is there for you. But it starts with you understanding your identity is not that you were a porn addict. Your identity is that you were a child of God. And you have to stop talking to yourself as if you're somebody who's just trying to quit porn. You are the person who is free from it. And you're doing the steps that it takes to get free from it. And that starts with leaning fully on God. So it starts with your identity. And the next thing is your system. Yes, you can have this identity, you can have this desire, and you can pray, but God is not the God of just in your mind and your soul. He's also the God of your habits. What is the system that you have that's helping you free from lust? Do you have your phone next to your bedside table? That's like putting a Playboy magazine on your bedside table and expecting yourself not to look at it. That's idiotic. Have a system that sets you up for success. First and foremost, have all the blockers on your phone. Second, keep your phone out of your bedroom or wherever you're prone to fall into sin. Avoid it like the plague. Be a Pharisee in your own life because that's how serious it is. Don't be legalistic with other people. Be very legalistic with yourself. Set up a system that's going to help you succeed in that area. And then third, your environment. What are the people you're around? What are they telling you? Are these people that are also falling into sin? Are they normalizing it? Or are these people that are holding you accountable, who are uplifting you, who are going deeper than what's comfortable for you? Because spoiler alert, this isn't a comfortable thing. You got to get uncomfortable. And you got to find those people who are going to give you that extra push. What is the entertainment you're watching? What is the music you're consuming? Because if that stuff is normalizing sexual immorality, it's going to get into your subconscious and you're going to think that's normal, but it breaks God's heart. So remember who you are and then set up the system and the environment that's going to allow you to succeed. And you can't do that alone. And I want you to remember, no matter how much you fall, as the Proverbs say, a righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up. Don't sit in that shame. Take the next step, not the next 100. Take the one next step, the best one that you can take, and keep running the race that was set before you. So that's the porn addict.
I know, dude. That was fire.
I've taught on that one a lot. I think it's one it's so important to the identity piece. There is the most important one.
Yeah.
And no amount of habits will change the belief about who you are. Because if you believe that you're a porn addict or just this person who's struggling, who's inevitably going to fall back into it, that's what you are. Yeah. That's 100%. That's the most important piece.
Yeah. Bro, do you have that like written on your wall behind you there or something? Are you just reading it off? Or
I've done a YouTube video about it, and then I've taught about it in the Mighty Men Brotherhood countless times. Like all my guys know it's identity, system, environment. Nice, those 3 things. If you work on those 3, first and foremost, identity, you're set. Now it's going to be a battle. It's going to be hard, but if you have those 3 things, you have a clear blueprint, a clear path forward. So I would say that for the person struggling with lust, but you also said the person in the red pill mentality.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
he may not be agreeing
with this one.
He's gonna cook.
He's gonna be like, "Oh, this is crap. I don't believe in this." I look up to those guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak off the cuff here. Let's see here. If you have fallen into the red pill mentality, hustle culture, the focus on the self ideology, I want you to know that the things of this world will never satisfy you. Whether it's sex, whether it's money, whether it's status, these things aren't necessarily bad things. But if you make that the chief aim of your life, time and time again, you're going to be asking for more. You are living in a cycle of dopamine. Dopamine is not the chemical of pleasure, it's the chemical of pursuit, which is why you have this ambition to get somewhere. That's a good thing. And you try and get there and you achieve it. Feels good for a little bit. Then you come back to normal. You want the same feeling. So you do the same thing, but it doesn't give you the same hit because that's not how dopamine works. It requires a greater stimulus. So you have to do something more extreme and then more extreme and more extreme. And at the end of the day, you're just going to continue repeating this cycle, doing more extreme things, still feeling the same, still having that empty hole inside of you. And at the end of the day, this isn't just going to affect your life. It's going to leave a path of wreckage around you. And you were made for more in just serving yourself. That won't satisfy you and it will waste your legacy. But a real man stands up and acts like a man, using his strength not for himself, but for the service of others. A real man focuses first and foremost on his legacy, how he leads his wife, how he leads his kids. If you're not there yet, focus on preparing for that, because that's the greatest gift that God will ever give you. And if you focus on that service, using your strength for your best possible outcome for these people, that is where your purpose is going to come from. That is where your fulfillment is going to come from. And if you want to be great, if you want to leave a legacy, it's not by what you do. It's what you enable the people around you to do. So start focusing on that. Be like Jesus. Be a servant. It may not be pretty. It may not be sexy like what Andrew Tate says. It's going to be a lot harder. But at the end of your life, you can look back and say, I did what God called me to be. I was faithful. And I promise you, brother, that is worth it.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Nate Fagen. What a cook.
Yeah, really, man. This has probably been one of our favorite episodes.
I really enjoyed this, and
This has been great.
Very grateful that you came on. Man,
Yeah,
so I want to say thank you.
This was awesome. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming
so
on the
much.
show, man.
Thank you, boys. It's been an honor to be here, and I really appreciate y'all. Great questions, but even more importantly, I love that you guys are being the voice of our generation, like really focusing on these real issues and helping guys our age, because there's so much garbage out there, and the Andrew Tates, the Nick Fuenteses that are extreme, and they're bringing all these people in, but they're selling them a lie. But you're trying to get men on the right path, and we need more men like you guys. So thank you so much for having me and just talking about these things that are so important.
Well, right back at you, brother.
Right back at you.
You know, you're amazing right now. I mean, anybody, if you want to kind of shout out your the group. I mean, we already talked about it, but where can they go and check it out and try to get some more information on this?
Yeah, so the Mighty Men Brotherhood. If you're interested in learning more about joining our community, focused on growing inwardly, outwardly, and upward for God's glory, DM me the words Mighty Men on Instagram, and I'll get you more details on how you could potentially join. I'll get you an application and more details for that.
We'll plug his Instagram in the
go.
description.
There we go,
Thank
man.
you, boys.
Right now,
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
One more thing. I just launched a YouTube, and I'm really I was posting before, but I've scrapped all of it, and I'm going. That's going to be my primary focus. So, would love it if people who are watching, if you enjoyed this, would love if you could check out my YouTube channel, because I think it's a lot easier to pack these like very deep ideas into a 10-minute video than it is a 30-second reel where it's just shock value, and then you can't really give any value from that. So yeah, definitely love it if you guys check out my YouTube.
Yeah, we'll plug that as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, thank
you
you for being here, brother. It's been a pleasure.